What's going on, everybody? What is going on? It is Wednesday, February 19th, 2023. I'm sorry, 2025. Oh my God. Where did I get 2023 from? I went back 2 years. That's crazy. It is 2025, and we are back with another live here on the Torian Rain Reloaded channel. If you haven't done so already, please be sure to go ahead and hit the like button, hit the share button, hit the subscribe button if you are new to the channel. And if you are new to the channel, I'm glad that you were here. Hit the bell twice to be notified whenever I upload a new video or go live, or just simply join the Discord to be notified in there. So as you can see by the title, we're going to be talking more about these pardons that Trump has given out to those who were a part of January 6th. I already did a couple of them as triple P's, but then I came across an article that was posted at the end of January that had a whole rundown of people who got pardons from this, but they have some interesting criminal past where either they did something criminally after the 6th or before the 6th. And some of them, listen, they got out of jail probably just to go right back on in. But before we get into all of that, let me acknowledge those who are here in the chat or left comments early. We have Dre, we have DSB, we have Haxon KT, Italio Rachi. Forgive me if I mispronounce your name. Reparations Nations, 7, DSA, 1, Miss Nisi, Black Spider, Wallow J, Gamers Den, the My Voice channel, the Informant. Oh, Jay, you switch your name up. He says the Informant Media. We got Don P. We have Victory God. We have Travis Tippins, RDRD. Who else we got in? Shamika Gray and Damon Reeves. I would greatly appreciate it. Each and every one of you can go ahead and hit that like button and share button. But before we get into all of that, did any of y'all hear what happened today in Arizona? I don't know what's going on with these airplanes, but it's some weird stuff going on right now. It's absolutely insane. We are still in the first quarter of 2025, and we still got these planes falling out the sky. They crashing into each other, bad landing. I don't know what's going on, but they said, I read somewhere they said where the pilots on there unfortunately did lose their life. So, condolences out to their families and loved ones. But man, it is crazy what's going on out here. And shout out again to DSB for gifting the memberships, and everyone who got a gifted membership. Shout out to you. But it's some wild stuff going. I'm going to tell you this right now. If this is their method of getting people to spend money on this high gas, it might be working. Because this is real spooky. And the thing is, I used to work at an airport. So I would know traveling during the winter months is not ideal because of the weather and because, it's real cold. So typically people will start traveling more so when spring hits, when the weather breaks. Listen, they need to find a way to tighten up by mid-March, because from mid-March all the way for the rest of the year, it's going to be busy. Lunchy says, what did the pilots look like? They didn't reveal who the pilots were. They didn't say. And see, James, that comment you just left, that is exactly when he made that comment, what happened at Reagan National last month. That's why now every time there's an issue going on with the planes, people are always going to ask that question, like the one that just got asked, what was the race or the ethnic background of the pilots? Because of that comment he made. That's always going to come up now. But stats say that most pilots are white men. That's what stats say. But I just wanted to throw that part out there, before starting, because I said I have to just slightly address that, because I probably won't talk about it at length. But now we're going to go ahead and talk about this right here. And it's only one article, because this is the only article that really broke it down, from NPR. Criminal records of January 6 rioters pardoned by Trump includes, well, you see the word on your screen, and domestic violence. That's just what it includes. Now, what's crazy is because I already skimmed through this article, some of these individuals have criminal records that date back to the 90s. Now, keep this in mind. January 6th happened in 2021. Some of these people have records that date back to the 90s. That means they shouldn't have even been out there to begin with. But they went out there because, they had to follow the crowd. So we're going to go ahead now, and I'm going to go over this article. Editor's note, it says this story includes descriptions of violent crimes and sexual abuse involving both adults and children that may be disturbing to readers. So the editor of this article had to give a disclaimer before anybody read it or listened to it, because it has an audio version of it just in case you may not want to read it. On his first day in office, President Donald Trump granted clemency to every person charged or convicted for their role in the January 6, 2021 attack on the U.S. Capitol, even those convicted of violently assaulting police officers. But Trump's pardons and commutations for people he has called, quote, patriots, did not wipe away certain defendants' extensive criminal records or any other criminal charges they may be facing. And if any of them went into that thinking that was the case, they are a fool. While many people had no criminal record prior to committing crimes on January 6th, NPR has identified dozens of defendants with prior convictions or pending charges for crimes including violations, sexual abuse of a minor, domestic violence, manslaughter, production of child SA material, and drug trafficking. Y'all, these are people that went there on that day and did what they did and had all this going on in the background. If you had this going on in the background, you should have been laying low as much as possible, just for the simple fact that now your stuff is about to be exposed for the world to see. Where something was more contained, now everyone's going to know. One of those defendants was Matthew Huddle. Now, Matthew Huddle was someone that I did do a video on. As a matter of fact, it was a triple P. One of those defendants, Matthew Huddle, was recently shot and killed by law enforcement in Indiana during a traffic stop just days after receiving a pardon for his role in the Capitol riot. In 2023, Huddle pleaded guilty to entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds on January 6th and received a sentence of 6 months in prison. Huddle has an extensive criminal history that demonstrates a pattern and practice of disrespecting and disobeying the rule of law, which is consistent with his actions on January 6th. In one incident, Huddle spanked his 3-year-old son so hard that he left bruises all over the child's backside and the child's neck. And the child has such extreme pain on his backside that he could not sit properly for a week. So this guy was abusing his own child. His own 3-year-old child. Huddle was sentenced to 2.5 years of imprisonment. Yeah, I heard about that, dimple face. I heard about it. I found that out on Twitter about an hour ago. Prosecutors also noted repeated arrests for driving under the influence of alcohol. And I think I want to say that's why he got pulled over by that cop. Prosecutors also noted repeated arrests. I already read that part. Huddle's defense attorney attributed his criminal record to a history of extreme alcohol abuse. Even after January 6th, Huddle continued to rack up state charges in Indiana for driving offenses. Less than a week after he received the pardon from Trump, Huddle was fatally shot in an altercation with a sheriff deputy, according to Indiana State Police. Trump has defended his decision to give pardons and commutations to all of the defendants charged in connection with the violent January 6th attack by suggesting that evaluating all of the cases individually would have been too difficult. He told you right then and there that he wants this to be a breeze administration. It would be very, very cumbersome to go and look, how many people we're talking about, 1,500 people. Trump told Fox News earlier this month. He also said that the prison sentences for January 6th defendants were excessive. These people have served horribly a long time, he said in his Fox News interview. You know who also served a very long time in prison? A lot of black men for crimes they didn't commit. I'm talking about 10, 20, 30, 40 plus years in jail for crimes they didn't commit. And a lot of them got locked up during their youth. Some of them did not experience their 20s, their 30s, or their 40s. And then when they get out, then it's like, oh, by the way, loophole, my bad. You were innocent the whole time. You knew he was innocent the whole time. Trump's comments overlooked the role that January 6th defendants' prior criminal records played in sentencing. Federal judges take that criminal history into account when deciding a criminal defendant's sentence. A spokesperson for the White House did not respond to messages seeking comment for this story. If Trump had looked at individual cases, the long criminal records of some January 6th defendants may have raised some red flags. And can someone block or get or time out "America is dying slowly, please and thank you"? Theodore Mittendorf was accused by Illinois prosecutors of predatory criminal SA of a child. And I think I did a video about this dude too. I don't know if I uploaded it yet, but I think I got one coming. And if not, it might be on my, it might end up on Patreon. I can't remember, but I do remember this name. Prosecutors said in a court filing obtained by NPR that Mittendorf committed an act of S penetration. Indiana state records indicate that Mittendorf victim was 7 years old. Mittendorf entered a guilty plea in that case in May 2024 and was sentenced to 19 years in prison. He is currently registered as a sex offender in the state and remains in custody on those charges. Separately, Mittendorf pleaded guilty to destruction of government property for striking a window at the U.S. Capitol with a flagpole on January the 6th. He had not yet been sentenced for his role in the Capitol riot when the Justice Department moved to dismiss his case following Trump's order. Peter Schwartz had a jaw-dropping criminal history of 38 prior convictions going back to 1991. Let me repeat that. Peter Schwartz had a jaw-dropping criminal history of 38 prior convictions going back to 1991 when he assaulted police officers with pepper spray on January the 6th. When those prosecutors made their sentencing recommendations to the judge, they described a 1994 disorderly conduct case for throwing a, quote, lit cigarette at a victim and striking her near her eyes, a 2004 case for assault with a deadly weapon, a 2019 case for terroristic threats for threatening police while under arrest for domestic assault, and a 2020 case of assaulting his wife, including by biting her on her forehead and punching her multiple times. Doesn't this guy just sound like a well-rounded, well-adjusted American? Given that history, prosecutors said the only reliable method of protecting the community from Schwartz in the future is to remove him from the community for as long as possible. Federal Judge Amit Mehta gave Schwartz one of the toughest prison sentences stemming from the riot, more than 14 years. Less than 4 years after Schwartz's arrest, Trump pardon freed him from prison. Trump's pardons apply only to people convicted of offenses related to events that occurred at or near the United States Capitol on January 6th. As a result, some January 6th defendants are still facing criminal charges from other alleged incidents. David Daniel of Mint Hill, North Carolina, is charged with production of CP and possession of CP, which allegedly involved a prepubescent minor and a child under the age of 12. The government's forecast of evidence is compelling and suggests the defendant engaged in sexual acts with 2 young girls in his own family. Let me just stop right here before I go any further. It's the fact that not only do these individuals have all of this stuff going on in their background, it's the fact, or even that they're being pardoned, it's the fact that they look at how easily they were able to mix and mingle in that crowd that day, and no one knew what these individuals had going on. That's the scary part. That's the scary part. They are able to blend in so well in society, and no one knows what they had going on until this dug up their stuff because of their involvement in January 6th. Had they not gone there that day, this would still be under wraps. Magistrate Judge David Kiesler wrote of the case against Daniel. It is also alleged that he took and kept photos of the private areas of said victims. The mother of one victim, who was the defendant's ex-wife, appeared in court to request that defendant not be released. Because of those findings, Judge Kiesler ordered Daniel to remain in detention pending trial. Daniel has pleaded not guilty to the charges in North Carolina, and that case remains pending. Separately, Daniel pleaded guilty to a charge of assaulting police officers on January 6th, but he had not yet been sentenced. Trump's Department of Justice dismissed that case, and he is not the only defendant facing ongoing criminal charges. Arresting warrant records allege that Daniel Ball of Florida, through an explosive device that detonated upon at least 25 officers during the Capitol riot and also forcefully shoved police trying to protect the building. According to charging documents, Ball had a criminal record before his arrest of January 6, including for domestic violence, battery by strangulation, resisting law enforcement with violence, and battery on law enforcement officer. When federal agents arrested Ball on January 6 charges, they discovered that he was also in possession of a gun and ammunition, which was illegal given his criminal history, according to prosecutors. In addition to the January 6 charges, a grand jury in Florida handed down a separate indictment against Ball in August 2024 for possession of a firearm or ammunition by a convicted felon. Ball pleaded not guilty to his Capitol riot charges, and the Department of Justice, following Trump's order, dismissed his case. But Trump pardoned and did not resolve his gun case. On January 22nd, Ball was rearrested on the Florida gun charges. That case remains pending, and Ball has pleaded not guilty. Andrew Taki, or Takei, I don't know if I'm pronouncing his name correctly or not, of Texas, pleaded guilty to assaulting police officers with bear spray and a, quote, metal whip on January 6th and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. He also had prior criminal cases that remained unresolved. The Harris County District Attorney in Texas said that Andrew is wanted on 2016 charges of soliciting a minor online. Have you noticed something in common with a lot of these individuals? Is a lot of it is dealing with them dealing with a minor. We are already in the process of tracking Andrew down, District Attorney Sean Terr said in a statement shared with NPR. Andrew allegedly sent sexually explicit messages to someone he thought was a 15-year-old girl, but was in fact an undercover law enforcement officer, prosecutors allege, as part of his January 6 case. Here are some of the other January 6 cases where defendants had a significant criminal record before they were charged for their role in the riot, and they all received pardons. USA versus Casey Hopkins. Casey Hopkins has a lengthy and troubling criminal history, including a 2002 conviction for forcible violations, which resulted in a 7-year prison sentence, according to prosecutors' sentencing memorandum on his January 6 case. The defendant had forcible intercourse with the victim, choked her to the point of impairing her vision, banged her head into a wall, and urinated into the victim's mouth to humiliate her. What is going on here? This is why the editor gave that disclaimer at the beginning of the article. When the victim attempted to flee, the defendant caught up to her and threw her down. Prosecutors allege that Hopkins also had prior other convictions for assault on a law enforcement officer, operating a motor vehicle without a license, and possession of a controlled substance. In 2022, Hopkins pleaded guilty to a charge of parading, demonstrating, and picketing in a Capitol building and was sentenced to 4 months in prison. Prosecutors said that prior to the January 6th riot, he discussed the possibility of a civil war, quote unquote, and proposed forming a group called Proud Felons for Trump. Hopkins wrote a letter to Judge Tanya Chutkan, who oversaw his case, noting that, "Ma'am, you have my rap sheet, and to my shame, it's not a good one. For that matter, I am not sure if any rap sheet is good." He said prison had changed him for the better and expressed shame and regret for his actions on January 6th. USA versus Edward Richmond Jr. In 2004, Edward Richmond Jr. was serving in the U.S. Army when he was convicted of manslaughter after shooting a handcuffed Iraqi cowherder in the head with his rifle. For the manslaughter conviction, Richmond was sentenced to 3 years of military confinement and dishonorably discharged. Richmond's criminal record, court documents indicate, also included convictions for resisting officers and driving under the influence, as well as an arrest for domestic abuse. For his role in the January 6th attack, Richmond pleaded guilty to a charge of assaulting, resisting, and impeding certain officers using a dangerous weapon. According to a statement of offense, Richmond agreed to a part of his plea. He wore, quote, tactical gear to the Capitol on January 6th, including a helmet, goggles, and a camouflage vest. He stayed at the front of the mob, fighting against police for almost 2 hours, the statement said, and struck officers with a baton. Richmond was sentenced to more than 4 years in prison in his January 6th case. Are y'all still with me? Put a 1 in the chat if y'all are still with me. I know this is a lot. This is a lot. Yeah, I'll post the link in the chat, Tucker 1024, when I'm done reading it. USA versus Jonathan Gennaro Mellis. Jonathan Mellis had a previous felony criminal conviction for drug trafficking, conspiracy to manufacture or sell methamphetamine, which resulted in a 20-year prison sentence, court documents state. Prosecutors said he also had a history of arrests which did not result in conviction, including for domestic assault. That's another commonality I'm noticing with these guys, is that a lot of them have domestic abuse and violence on their record as well. So they love putting their hands on other people, most likely other women. In 2023, Mellis pleaded guilty to assaulting, resisting, or impeding certain officers using a dangerous weapon, and agreed as a part of his plea that he used a large wooden stick to repeatedly strike or stab police officers on January 6th. USA versus Benjamin Martin. Brother man said, how many were pardoned? All of them were. They said around 1,500. And remember, Trump said that if they did it on a case-by-case basis, it would be difficult. And this is why I'm reading this to you and saying why this was not a good idea to just blanketly pardon them. Look at the records that many of them had before they did what they did. Benjamin Martin pled to obstruction of a public officer in 2003, a 2016 battery charge where he repeatedly struck his 14-year-old daughter, and a 2018 battery charge where Martin choked his girlfriend and dragged her back into the house after she tried to flee. Martin was on supervision from his prior conviction when he took part on the January 6th riot, prosecutors said. Martin was convicted at trial of multiple charges in connection with January 6th, including civil disorder and entering and remaining in a restricted building or grounds. Because of his criminal record, Martin was prohibited from owning guns. When FBI agents arrested Martin in connection with the January 6th case, they found 8 firearms, including an AR-15 style rifle, multiple high-capacity magazines for the AR-15, and more than 500 rounds of ammunition. Mind you, he was not supposed to have any type of firearm in his possession. Martin contended that the firearms belonged to his fiancée and father-in-law. He was separately tried and convicted in California of possession of firearm and ammunition by a person with conviction for misdemeanor crime of domestic violence, which is a felony. Martin was sentenced to 13 months in prison for his case and more than 3 years in prison for the gun case. After Trump pardoned Martin for his January 6th conviction, Martin subsequently turned himself into authorities on the gun conviction. According to local media reports, he continues to deny all wrongdoing. And shout out to Dre for the 5. He says Trump often has a legitimately great idea, but he equally finds new ways to F it up almost every time. I appreciate the contribution. And when I get to the end of this article, because I noticed some people early on before I did the live had left a comment as it pertains to, I'll just say it right now, as it pertains to Biden and the administration and him giving certain pardons and Trump giving pardons. This is why I always tell you these are two wings attached to the same buzzard, because they were giving pardons to people that weren't, or in my opinion, did not deserve them. USA versus Edward Hemingway. Edward Hemingway has a serious criminal history. Now, this is the first time I've seen them start this off with serious criminal history, considering all the ones we have read so far. And shout out to DSB for the 10. He says, only in America where a criminal can try to overthrow the government, get a pardon just to do more crimes. Right. I appreciate the contribution. Dating back to 2004, prosecutors said in their arguments, in 2006, Hemingway pleaded guilty to sexual battery and criminal confinement and was initially sentenced to 3 years in prison. His probation was revoked, however, and he was resentenced to 5 years imprisonment. In connection with January 6, Hemingway pleaded guilty to charge of parading, demonstrating, or picketing in a Capitol building after he breached the U.S. Capitol building while chanting "Stop the Steal" and "Our House." At your house, you don't live at 1600 PA Avenue, or last I checked. At one point, prosecutors said he took a selfie inside the Capitol with his middle finger raised to the camera and posed for another photo while standing on a government vehicle that had been overrun by rioters. Hemingway's attorney argued that he had changed after his previous conviction. He has turned from that part of his life and has made a new one, his attorney wrote. Hemingway, however, received a sentence of 45 days in prison and 60 hours of community service for his actions on January the 6th. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the end of the article. And as promised, let me post the link to the article in the chat. That was some wild stuff right there, y'all. But you know what I'm about to also do is post the link for people to come up and speak about this. And I know that was a lot to register, but I would appreciate it if anyone in the chat who does come up and speak, tell me which story probably blew your mind the most. And I know it's like, it was a lot. But like I said, I was going to do it as a triple P, but like looking at that, when I skimmed it, I said, nah, let me just turn it into a live. All right. First, of course, Wallow J, what's going on?
What's going on, Tori? What's going on, everybody in the chat? Jesus Christ. Like, what do we just listen to? Like, I don't know, where can I start? I don't know where to start, people, because how many times did you mention SA and
between that one and domestic violence, that's why I said those two came up quite a bit between all of them. Not all of them, but a good 90% of them had one, or some of them had both.
Yeah. And I think that's also a clue for let everybody know that they lead in those like white people do lead in those categories. If you look those statistics up, they lead in all them categories, especially the child stuff. It's not even close. Like when you read about the one in North Carolina, that didn't surprise me because it was a guy off I think an online show where they try, you know how they like to go catch predators and whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
So it don't surprise me one damn bit. He's showing how stupid he is. Like Jesus Christ, I think one of them get locked up for deletion, right?
Well, I'm not. What do you mean? Talking about with January 6th or something
after they got out?
I don't think so. I don't think I remember hearing about that one.
Okay, I'll make sure. Good God Almighty, man. I'm speechless. You know what? I'm gonna land my plank. I don't even know what to say anymore.
All right, appreciate you coming up. Yeah, it was some wild stuff. All right, y'all know what time it is. Blowing up to the stage, Hurricane Nisi. What's going on?
Good evening, Tori and family in the chat. I'm not surprised by any of, as you was reading the charges, I was not shocked. And I'm going to tell you why. We all know as a people, PC, especially PC men, all that inbreeding, I'm editing my words, inbreeding, it comes as no shock. Look at history. They want to keep the race pure, right? I'm speaking on PC. They did that mess. Married first, second cousins, siblings.
And Miss Nisa, you out there in West Virginia, so
I trust me, boo boo. I know what I'm talking about.
Yeah,
I know exactly what I'm talking about. And I think I mentioned this before. When I got out of the service in 92, 92, and I came back home, I was very, very surprised of how many mixed children I saw in places that black folks don't live. That blew my mind. It really did. But those monsters, I'm like Wallow. I have no words, but I'm not shocked. Not by any of it. It's just disgusting. And I'll land my plane.
I appreciate you coming up. Oh, and also, Ms. Nisi, it did snow a little bit here. I think y'all tried this. I guess y'all tried to send some snow from West VA over here, but it didn't really amount to much. They said we're supposed to get a little bit more tomorrow. I had posted up on Twitter. I said that groundhog is on demon time for real this winter. We haven't had a, like I said, we haven't had a winter like this in years. But they said we're gonna treat it as such today or this time. It's freezing. It is for sure. All right, next up coming to the stage is AW1. What's going on?
Yeah, what's going on, Torian and chat? Torian, all I can say is, yeah, none of this surprises me. But of course, but wait one day till the bootlicks and the and the majority rule, as they say. Because I'm trying to be politically correct too on here. Try to make it seem like we're the worst, but yet statistics consistently shows that they lead in all that stuff globally. I mean, don't they go to other countries and be dating underage girls and boys? It's disgusting. You don't see black folks doing that. So this stuff don't surprise people. All I can say is, Torian, yeah, because it leaves me speechless too. You keep up the good work, man, and keep doing what you're doing.
Appreciate you. I see y'all in the chat talking about Virginia. Yeah, Virginia, y'all keep the snow down there this time because Maryland been getting hit with snowstorm after snowstorm after snowstorm, and y'all been able to duck and dodge. Not this time. And when I talk about Virginia, I'm talking about the more southern part of Virginia. Dre said Norfolk and Hampton. Yeah, y'all are dealing with what we had to deal with in January. So it feels a little good to not have to deal with so much. Yes, I am gloating, but it is freezing. It is very, very cold. Like today when I went to the gym, it was like 18 degrees. It was frigid outside this morning. All right, next up, we got Denzemus. What's going on?
What's good, my guy? You speaking of the cold, real quick. I caught the flu and shit.
Wow.
Yeah, but I'll just say, like everybody else, I am not surprised. I knew these people. I've been knew these people were sexual degenerates ever since I've been a gamer. I've told you the story before about how these fools were singing songs about the black male phallus. So this absolutely does not surprise me at all. It's at this point, to a certain extent, I just look at it as part of their culture, their nature. On top of that, they're hypocrites because these are the same people who, when the whole Kyle Rittenhouse situation went down, they were making excuses for that one guy being killed, who was allegedly a child, you know what? But then when it comes to this situation, all of a sudden they acting brand new. So they're full of shit. They're full of pure shit, and we see what it is. And another thing I wanted to mention, if you ever watched this movie called, if anybody ever gets a chance, watch the beginning scene of this movie called Evil Dead, and you'll get a glimpse of
I've seen Evil Dead. That movie is very
yeah.
And I think I have a feeling I know what scene you're talking about.
Yeah, if anybody gets a chance, watch that scene and also watch Wrong Turn. That'll let you into their fucking culture and you'll see how degenerate these monsters is.
And The Hills Have Eyes.
Yes, and I'm gonna just end it by saying this. Please, 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 my fellow FBAs, do not taint your genetics by having anything to do with these monsters. That's all I have to say, B1.
B1. Yeah, when Dezima said Evil Dead, I knew exactly what he was talking about. I actually saw the original Evil Dead for the first time over a year ago, and it was a scene in there that I it was out of my mind. And then thanks a lot, Denzimus, for bringing it up, and now it kicked back in. Now I know exactly what scene you're talking about. And then I had the nerve to watch the remake that came out a few years ago, and that one added on and escalated to that scene. I'm like, y'all couldn't have got more traumatic if you tried, but they did. And then yeah, he mentioned Wrong Turn. Yeah, that movie, I'm gonna be honest, when I first saw Wrong Turn, that movie did kind of scare me, and that happened in West Virginia. And whenever I think about Wrong Turn, Miss Nisi, I know for a fact they ain't about to run up on you. them cannibals ain't gonna run up on Hurricane Nisi. That'll be the last time they make motion. And then The Hills Have Eyes. I always kind of think like The Hills Have Eyes and Wrong Turn kind of like they're kind of piggyback off of each other. It's just that one's like in the woods, like in like a hick area, but it does take place in West Virginia, whereas The Hills Have Eyes is in the desert. Oh yeah, Don P, The People Under the Stairs. Whoo! That was another one. That, you know who was more, Don, I'm gonna be honest with you. You want to know who was more creepier than The People Under the Stairs as far as being in that movie? Was that couple, especially the man wearing that leather and doing that dominatrix stuff. He, in my opinion, was more creepier than them people that they had up under them stairs. But yeah, if y'all, who was that? Someone said PD there means glad I didn't watch that. Yeah, if you haven't watched it, then if you have no reason to watch it, then don't watch it. But if it's out of curiosity, you may not get through it. I'ma just be honest with you. And the only way I was able to see, well, Wrong Turn I saw years ago, like around the time when it came up. But when the Hills Have Eyes, I saw that when we had movie night when I was in college, and I went there and I watched it, and man, I could not unsee some of the stuff that was in that movie, to the point where I haven't watched. I'm gonna be honest with you, I haven't watched The Hills Have Eyes in years. It was a scene in the second one that, if you've seen it, yeah. I'll put it this way: those people who do movie reactions on YouTube, and you know how they have they'll show clips like or flashes of the movie as they're watching it. If that scene came up, they would either blur that part out, or they would watch and you would see the reaction with the imagery off screen, because YouTube would strike it down. Ms. Nixie said Professor Black Truth's address today was on point. Yeah, of course, it's always on point. PD Remain says, I'm straight. He said, I can't do the demon stuff. And yeah, I understand. A lot of people can't handle that. And that's perfectly okay. Yeah, The People Under the Stairs it was a wild movie. It really was. Ashley said The Hills Have Eyes is just a MAGA documentary. Y'all crazy in this chat. Gamers, see, you talking about Hills Have Eyes too? If that's what you're talking about, yeah, that scene. I'm gonna just refer to it as that scene. I don't even want to describe it. The imagery of the scene literally popped up in my head the minute I said The Hills Have Eyes too. Shout out to DSB yet again doing what DSB does best, and that's gifting these memberships. And shout out to Breeze Omega for becoming a member of the channel for 1 month. I appreciate it. And Breeze Omega just popped up in the chat. Isn't that something? He must have knew that random membership picker was right around the corner. Jonathan said he used to watch The People Under the Stairs. That was my favorite movie. Yeah, Wes Craven did a good job with that. A lot of people forget that Wes Craven that was one of his early horror movies, and it was different. It was rare because you had the one thing about The People Under the Stairs is, while it's a horror movie, that movie literally talks about the Black experience back then and even today, because it talks about like gentrification. Like that's the underlying. It's a lot of deep messages in that movie besides it just being a horror movie, because that was baked into the storyline, but it was done pretty well, and the ending is something to be proud of as well. And then they had the little black boy, I forgot his name, but he was real popular back in the 90s. He was he basically thwarted the whole plan of the criminals. Christopher says, you thought they showed ass before, now the Trump partner, they're really well. See, here's the thing, Christopher. I don't know when you came in, but we just did a rundown of all these criminals and the stuff that they did. They will wish that they had not gone out there and participated in what they did, because now people know about their criminal behavior, and yeah, it's nothing to laugh at. It's far from it. See, Ashley, I didn't watch the X-Files. I wasn't a X-Files guy. I know that it was real popular back in the 90s. A lot of people watched it. I wasn't one of those people. Maybe it's because I couldn't understand it because I was only a kid, so that wasn't really entertainment to me. But I knew a lot of X-Files was a very popular show back then. Yeah, he played Michael Jackson in the kid version of the Bad video. Tildall says, now I want to go rewatch Jeepers Creepers and Children of the Corn. Jeepers Creepers is really good. The first and second one. Anything after the first two, I don't care. I know that they came out with a third one. The third one was absolutely horrible from what I've heard. I didn't even watch it. The first two, though, are really good. The first two Jeepers Creepers movies. Those scared the ish out of me as a young preteen, I should say. Anita says, in the wrong turn, the little one got him on. I know exactly who you're talking about. He was the one that was hopping all over the place. Yeah. All three of them was creepy, but that guy was that thing. I don't want to call him a guy because those things aren't even human. That one right there, he was aggressive. Thank you, brother, man. Brandon Adams. That was the little boy's name. But yeah, he used to be in a lot of stuff back in the day. As a matter of fact, he was with Merlin Santana the night that Merlin was murdered. I think that was highlighted in the True Crime Sunday that we did. He was with him in the car that night. Scoop says, I'm a little older. It was the Amityville Horror for me. You want to know what's so crazy? Is that house is real. That house actually is in Amityville, New York. And I always said it was creepy because those windows look like eyes. They look like eyes. And they were some creepy looking owl looking eyes. Damon says the first Exorcist. Now listen, that we all know the Exorcist has gone down in history as like one of the scariest movies of all time. Like that one laid a whole new foundation on horror movies in its entirety. Like that one, The Exorcist 1973 broke the mold on horror films, and everybody been trying to and ever since then that was the beginning of possession movies. Because before then, you had like your zombie flicks. You might have had a vampire flick here and there. Of course, you had your serial killers in there, but you didn't have a possession flick. And then that movie came out, and it changed the landscape. I remember seeing clips online where they said I saw the lines were long for people to go see that movie, and they said people was fainting and passing out. Some people was vomiting. I was like, sheesh, the movie did all of that. And then it was shot in Georgetown. And if you are in the area or familiar with Georgetown, you know that's in DC. That's the bougie part of That's the bougie part of DC. I always say you got Georgetown and then you got everywhere else. And the steps, those famous steps, are still there. People go there and actually do cardio on those steps every day. Like they'll run up and down them steps. You can get a good exercise on them steps. Those steps are still there. I don't think they've remodeled the steps. Like they still are the same. Like they're like the same material and everything as it was back then. Prospect Avenue in the house is still right there too. But of course it's not open. It's just there. People will go take pictures of it and say, oh, this is known as the Exorcist house. And literally on some of your phones, if you go there, it literally says the Exorcist steps right there on the map. But you want to know what movie did get a lot of us kids back in the early 2000s, more so when I was in middle school? The Ring. The Ring, that was the one. And I truly believe, and this is just my theory, that the reason why that The Ring was one of the last VHS movies that they released on VHS because of the theming of the movie. You watch the tape and you got 7, and then you die in 7 days. After that, you really didn't see a lot of VHS tapes anymore. It started to transition more to DVDs after that. Bree says the Scary Jack. Oh, you talking about The Grudge? That was another one. The Grudge was another one. That I'll say The Grudge gave me some of my biggest jump scares, the American version of it, when I first saw it. I never jumped so many times when I watched that movie. Wallow J said Final Fantasy with the log scene. Wallow? You mean Final Destination? And the second one, and by the way, thanks for bringing that up. That movie, Final Destination 2, till this day, nobody is driving behind a log truck. I see so many log trucks. I've seen more log trucks in my area than I care to admit. And every time I see them, it's not enough for me just to not drive behind the log truck. I need to drive around it. Like, I need to be in front of it. Like, I can't be beside it. I can't be behind it. I got to be in front of it. And to this day, mind you, that movie came out in 2003. It's 2025. Over 22 years? Yeah, 22 years later, and still to this day, nobody's driving behind a log truck. And how I know is whenever I'm on, like if I'm driving like on an interstate or the freeway or whatever, and I see a log truck, it's just the log truck. Nobody's beside it or behind it. Or if people do end up behind it, they go around it. And when they do that, I say, you saw Final Destination 2. I'm telling you, that movie still has a stranglehold on people because of that scene. Now, what's crazy is the first one was a plane. The second one was the crash with the log truck. The third one was a roller coaster. The next one was a NASCAR, and the other one was a bridge. The thing is, people still flying on planes, even though these planes are acting out of control right now. People still go on roller coasters at amusement parks and fairs and carnivals. People still go to NASCAR events. I don't. And people have to still drive across bridges. But that log truck, people ain't driving behind them log trucks. Even though there are accidents that happen on the highway all the time, no one's driving behind the log truck. Scoop says, I guess I'm in the wrong part of the country. I've never seen a log truck. Well, thank God you haven't. But in case you do, heed this warning. Don't drive behind it or beside it. If you see a log truck, you go around it. You be in front of it. I used to be scared of roller coasters. I'll admit, I didn't like roller coasters. My first roller coaster I got on was in 2005, and that's because I went on a class trip. We went to the Six Flags in Jersey, which in my opinion is my favorite one, even though I haven't been to all of them, but that is what it is. And I said, I can't look all scary in front of my peers. I'm going to face my fears, and I'm going to get on a roller coaster. Why the first roller coaster I ever got on when I went to that Six Flags was the Superman. And I'm talking about the one where you're laying down on your stomach, not the one where you're sitting up. You're laying flat down. That was the first roller coaster I got on, and the adrenaline, I felt it. And I said, this is what I've been missing out for the first 15, 16 years of my life. Man, I wanted to get on every roller coaster after that, but we was on a time constraint. So the next time I went, I made sure to get me a flash pass. That way I wouldn't have to wait in no line. Got on every roller coaster in the park. And now whenever I go to amusement parks, I make sure to go on every roller coaster in the park. Shout out to DSB for the 10. He says, no lie, you don't want to be nowhere near a log truck. They are everywhere on the road here in Mississippi. I can believe it. If you live in the country or in the South, there are a lot of log trucks, a lot of them. And then on top of that, and down South, like in the deep South, there are some places that still have like one traffic light, which means you're driving on a lot of open road that has no traffic. Because I know where my mother is from, it's so much open road there. So if you wanted to be someone that just wanted to drive freely, you could. You don't have to worry about a whole bunch of traffic lights. You don't have to worry about no speed cameras. None of that. It's still like that down in certain parts of the South to this day. That's why some people like who get their licenses down there, it's easy for them because it's not as what's the word I'm looking for? Not as constrained as it is if you opposed to if you live in a metropolitan city like where I'm at. Mission says, I've been to all the parks and damn near haven't been on one. Never will I just go to the water section or the water park. I'm terrified to even climb the steps. Yeah, those are some high steps. And that's the one thing I don't like about water parks is because if you want to go up the slide, you got to wait in that long line to get to the top, only to be on that slide for less than a minute. It's like the journey was climbing up here and now it's over. What's going on, Miss Nisa? You back?
Yes, I want my song.
Oh God.
Now listen, you can sing me whatever. Just sing me a song. Pick a Michael Jackson song.
I can't think of one right now.
Oh, you lying? Okay, your next live, you better have me a song.
Okay.
All right, have a good evening.
All right. I don't know why Miss Nisi thinks I'm like this Grammy award-winning singer. She must have heard me singing, doing karaoke somewhere, and I didn't know that she was around. Not y'all throwing requests in the chat. News 4 Thought said Thriller. 7 said Man in the Mirror. And Damon said Pretty Young Thing. Which are all great songs, by the way. But I mean, this MJ at the end of the day. I mean, this man practically invented what we call the GOAT status. And Dimpleface says She's Out of My Life. And what's crazy is y'all name songs off of 4 different albums. You got Thriller, Man in the Mirror, which is bad. Pretty Young Thing, also off the Thriller. Okay, and then she has Out of My Life, that's off the wall. Tildall said it's that Barry White voice of yours. Y'all think I have a voice like Barry White? I don't hear it. I've heard. Listen, please don't say I gotta listen. I'm telling you right now, if I had a Barry White voice, I probably would never be quiet. Aiden said, "Well, you have a great singing." I'm trying to figure out where have y'all heard me sing at where y'all think I got this amazing singing voice. Thank you, Damon. Thank you. Someone in here has some sense talking about I got a voice like Barry White. JG says, what about the scene from Time of Destination when that boy was swimming in the pool? Yeah, that was in the fourth one. That had to be one of the most craziest deaths in that whole movie. I didn't really care for that one. I think out of all of them, that was the weakest one, in my honest opinion. But that death right there was insane. That was wild. That had people kind of scared to go in the pool for a little bit because of that drainage, that hole. But you know they're coming out with another Final Destination in May. I am looking forward to that. And I knew about this movie for like the last 2 years. So I am looking forward to it. It's called Bloodlines. So I'm curious to know what the storyline is going to be with that. And it's probably going to be very interesting. And Tony Todd, RIP to him, actually filmed scenes for that movie as the coroner right before he passed. But anyway, y'all, I'm about to get up on out of here. I like that we had this little discussion after the fact. It's crazy how we transitioned from what we was talking about and it led all the way here. But that's just how conversations go when they just flow correctly. We will have a premiere video tomorrow, no live tomorrow, 10 a.m. video tomorrow. Some of y'all probably have already seen it. If not, make sure y'all go and check that out. Hit the notification bell just in case, for whatever reason, YouTube doesn't send a notification out, or just join the Discord. Shout out to everybody who contributed DSB with all these memberships. Dre, DSB for the contribution as well. I greatly appreciate it. Everyone who came up and spoke, all the members, all the people over on Patreon. If you're on Patreon, the video coming tonight. Shout out to the replay gang. And with that being said, y'all enjoy the rest of your evening. Be safe. Please stay warm because it is extremely cold outside, especially for those of us on the East Coast. And most importantly, be one.